Hey everyone, Violet here, and it's time to do another round of historical romance read down. So I am reading through my entire bookshelf, going through with going with authors A to Z by last name, and we're reading one book from authors I have like the most of that I haven't read. So, and if I like it, then they stay on the shelf, and if not, they're not gonna stay on the shelf anymore. So let's get to the B's, which I have significantly more of than A, largely because of two authors. So let's get into it. All right. So I believe I have the most books of this author, maybe in my entire collection, but definitely in historicals. We're starting out with Mary Belloc, who is not eligible for this list because I've read several Mary Belloc books. So we've got two of the Ravenswood. This is her current series. Book 1, Remember Love and Remember When. We have the entire Huxtable quintet. So first comes Marriage, then comes Seduction, at last comes Love, Seducing an Angel, and A Secret Affair. Also have the entire Survivors Club series, The Proposal, with this step back. The Arrangement, which has this step back. The Escape, Only Enchanting, Only a Promise, Only a Kiss, and Only Beloved. Two of the Bedouin books, Slightly Wicked and Slightly Dangerous. Three of the Westcotts. We got Someone to Wed, Someone to Care, and Someone to Honor. Two of the Horseman books, we've got Irresistible and Unforgiven. I have one of her Georgians. This is Heartless, and this has a very pretty step back. And then some random ones from her. Yeah, we're still not done. A Matter of Class. This is a novella. One Night for Love. I think this might connect to the Bedouins. The Secret Pearl. And then two Christmas novella collections that she's in. So It Happened One Night with Stephanie Lawrence, Mary Belloc, Jackie D'Alessandro, and Candace Hearn. And this is a collection of her own novella / short stories, which is Under the Mistletoe, Christmas one. So that's all the Belloc. And she is not eligible for this list. I've read like several of these. So we got 4 Maya Banks, In Bed with a Highlander, Seduction of a Highland Lass, and Never Love a Highlander, as well as Highlander Most Wanted. Two of the Diamonds in the Rough series by Sophie Barnes, A Most Likely Duke, and The Duke of Her Desire. One Jill Barnett book, which is called Wild. This is a medieval. I read this earlier this year. That's the step back. It's very fun. We have an Adrienne Basso called No Other Highlander. We are finally in the last stack of these. Okay, What a Pirate Desires by Michelle Beatty. Too Dangerous to Desire by Alexandra Benedict. Dukes Do It Better by Bethany Bennett. Two Roseanne Bittner Westerns. These are reprints of some 90s books. Outlaw Hearts and Do Not Forsake Me. Sarah Bennett's Once He Loves in hardcover. Very rare to have hardcover historicals. I have two of the Season for Scandal books by Kelly Bowen. Duke of My Heart, loved this. And Duke to Remember, which I haven't read yet. One Valerie Bowman, back from when she was still Trad Pub. She's now an indie author. The Unexpected Duchess. Okay, now we're into a big one. We've got Elizabeth Boyle. So let's see. We have... These are from across several series, but I don't really have them. They're kind of hard to track which ones for here. So we have Once Tempted, No Marriage of Convenience. This has the step back on the back. Once Tempted also does. So Once Tempted's cover and then the back. Something About Emmeline. Cover on the back. This Rake of Mine with John DeSalvo on the back. Mad About the Duke with step back. His Mistress by Morning. Step back. And okay, two of the Rhymes with Loves. So we have And the Mist Ran Away with the Rake. And this is the step back. And the Knave of Hearts. The Pretender by Celeste Bradley. Some Dukes Have All the Luck by Christina Britton. Thornbrook Park by Sherry Browning. And The Duke of Danger by Darcy Burke. This is part of her Untouchables series. This is a indie / self-pub situation, but I happen to get the paperback version of this. And finally, we have our last big cluster, and that is Grace Burrows. So we've got, I think, a few from Wyndham across a bunch of series here. The Heir, this was her first book, I believe. The Soldier, Lady Sophie's Christmas Wish, Darius, Too Scott to Handle, A Rogue of Her Own, How to Catch a Duke, Never a Duke, Lady Eve's Indiscretion, and The Captive Duke. This, I believe, was originally just called The Captive and was, I guess it's still a part of a series, but this one got like a reprint. Okay, that's all the bees. So, Mary Bellog, obviously not eligible, have read multiple books of hers. Grace Burrows is kind of an edge case because I have not technically read any of her historical romance, but I have read a good amount of her historical mysteries. So, I think I'm not going to count her for this either. So, let's see what we have left in the most category. So, taking them out, or taking out people I've read before, and we've got one giant cluster, which is Elizabeth Boyle. I think I have 7 Elizabeth Boyles? Yes. And then we've got 2 twofers here. We've got Sophie Barnes and Roseanne Bittner. So I'm going to do a little bit of research and see which book of these 3 authors I want to start with, or try. Well, this was actually kind of hard to choose. Well, one of them was actually. But, so for Roseanne Bittner, turns out the through line here was picking first of series. So for Roseanne Bittner, Outlaw Hearts is the first one. So we're going to read this one. For Diamonds in the Rough, it's by Sophie Barnes. It's going to be A Most Unlikely Duke. And then Elizabeth Boyle was where I really struggled. Frankly, actually, you know what? Let's always. So I was really not sure if I was going to pick His Mistress by Morning or Something About Emmeline. I'm leaning towards Something About Emmeline, but, you know, if I kind of bounce off of this one, I might switch to this one. We'll see. But we're going to pick Something About Emmeline right now. So yeah, we're going to be reading these 3 books in the historical romance read down, and we'll see what I think and if these authors are going to stay on the shelves. So yeah, talk to you later. Bye! Okay, the first book I started out with was Outlawed Hearts by Roseanne Bittner. This is a Western originally printed in, I believe, 1993, and then I guess at some point she got a deal with Source Books, and they did a reprint of this, and then she continued the series from there, like 20 years later. So, this is about Miranda and Jake. So, Miranda's father was a doctor, then became like a rancher, homesteader person. He's recently been killed by raiders. This happens in 66, so it's like very recently after the end of the Civil War. So she has a brother, but her brother like left her and her father ages ago to go find himself in like Nevada, and was kind of a deadbeat and useless. But now Miranda doesn't have anyone, so her plan is to like sell the ranch and go to Nevada to like try and reconnect with her brother. While she is like grocery shopping, she crosses paths with Jake Harkner, who is Jake Harkner, yeah. Yes, Jake Harkner, who is a outlaw on the run, real classic cowboy moment. And there is like a bounty hunter who shows up at the store, and he and Jake get in a fight, and Jake kills the guy, and then Miranda shoots Jake. So, you know, real fun meet cute there. And he, so he like runs off and he like gets away, but he ends up like, he's shot in the stomach, and that's not going well. So he just like stops at some like seemingly abandoned-ish spot to like rest up a little bit. And of course, it's Miranda's ranch that he lands at, and then she like nurses him back to health, and that is sort of the start of their relationship. And yeah, that is the start of their relationship, because unfortunately, I DNF'd this at around 10%. I feel like I will say this a lot on repeat, that this is not bad. Frankly, I think this might be the strongest of the DNFs that I've read in terms of like writing. I think old school historicals can really do like a lot of atmosphere. Like this really does feel like an Old West book. And like some of the details are really interesting and stuff, and the way people are talking about like the events, you know, how everyone's dealing with post Civil War, etc. is interesting. I just wasn't super interested in either of these characters. Miranda's kind of churchy. She talks a lot about God, which is not inherently a problem. But yeah, they're both just like, they're both fine. They're both completely fine characters. I wanted to like push myself to get a little further, because I know that this is like a big book, and apparently it crosses several years worth of time. But I'm not sure that's really what I'm looking for right now. So yeah, and I think I just found I felt like I was a little removed from the characters, like not super in their emotions, but like hearing about them, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't feeling super attached. But yeah, so this is unfortunately no for me. As is, whoop. Okay, don't you dare slip off. This happened last time and they went crashing. Okay, so this, I did not realize, is a direct sequel to this book. This is also about Miranda and Jake. So this is kind of, this whole series, I think there are 6 books in the series at this point, and she just continued to write about these two throughout time. Okay, it's a romance novel, you know they get married. Like, they have kids, later books, etc., etc. So, that's cool. So I think if you like something like Outlander, right, where it's like, there is a romance is like a big part of it, but there is this sort of saga that you follow the characters through for a long time across multiple books, then I think you might really vibe with these. They're not as, this was, at least where I stopped, was not as like content warning laden as Outlander in my understanding, but I think if that is like your bag, I think that this might be interesting to you. But yeah, not for me. So Roseanne Bittner is gonna be heading to someone else's shelves. So yeah, I will get back to you when I have an update for the next one. Bye. Hello everyone, I am back with an update. So we have on dock A Most Unlikely Duke by Sophie Barnes. So this is about his name is Rafe, our hero's name is Rafe. He was landed gentry, but then his family fell on hard times and were basically living in the poor side of town. He was a bare knuckle boxer dude working for a shady man in the slums of St. Giles or whatever, when he gets informed that he is now the heir to a dukedom. So he takes himself and his younger sisters to go take the town by storm, but they are very cockney, and that is not going to go very well. Our heroine is Lady Gabriella. She's the daughter of an earl, I believe, and her sister ran off with a wealthy American instead of marrying some landed gentry man. So she has been sort of elevated to solving the family problems by marrying a landed lord, and she's really into etymology, the bugs. She studies bugs. That's her thing. She runs across Rafe when they're just moving in with her suitor, who is a really stuffy earl, and she thinks he's a servant because he's not dressed well, and he talks with a Cockney accent. He does. So then they live next door to each other, right? And so her mom and her auntie take her over there the next day to meet the new duke, and it's him, and she's like, oh boy, and her aunt is amused because her aunt's fun, and her mom is horrified, right? But she finds out that they don't have a lot of training, etc., etc., and so she wants to help the girls sort of become proper ladies for the town. And her family's like, no, you're not allowed, scandal or whatever. But she sort of sneaks away and does it anyway. And so it's her sort of being in proximity to him because she's helping her sisters out. And will they be able to take the tunnel by storm? And I will not know because I DNF'd this at around just under a third. Meh. We're back. We're back. I don't intend for these to have a similar arc. If you've watched episode 1, then you will know that the first two didn't go well there either. So this is very cute, very fun, very kind of mid-2010s historical romance energy, right? Which means that we are light, fluffy, kind of wallpapery romance, with some more social consciousness, we'll say. Attempts at social consciousness. And so Rafe is very, enlightened, right? He's the British class structure is silly and ridiculous. And I should just be able to be myself in this environment, and people should be able to accept me as I am, and I shouldn't have to change myself. My sister shouldn't have to change themselves. And she's like, well, in theory you shouldn't, but in practice you gotta when in Rome, sir. But I will say, I think the real reason this was not clicking for me is because this reminds me a lot of The Proposition by Judith Ivory. So in The Proposition, our heroine is named Winifred. She is someone who works to make young women successful in the town, largely with teaching them etiquette, etc., etc. And she gets challenged to turn a rat catcher into a man who can pass for a lord at a party. And so it's their relationship. This has a lot of the same themes, right? We've got this kind of rough and tumble working class man who largely thinks that the town is really silly, and this sort of class structure is very silly, and it's sort of a push and pull between this very brainy proper-ish woman and this rugged, lower-class man, right? So, in theory, I was like, maybe Sophie Barnes read the proposition and loved it, because, like, was there parody here? I don't know. But, unfortunately, I just think the proposition's doing it a lot better, like, with more... It's not that this is, like, historically more accurate, but I think it is more honest about the issues of the era. This feels like it is speaking very much to a modern reader. And maybe it's because this was also probably doing that, but these were like 15 years apart or so, maybe closer to 20. So, like, maybe I just feel like 90s grappling with social structures feels more historically rich than like 2010s grappling with historical structures. There's just a lot of lines here where he sounds so modern. This is one where, like, often I think people complain about heroines sounding too modern. The hero sounds super modern in here. Like, he's so egalitarian, and I think it's supposed to be that he has, like, because he's sort of lived in both worlds, he sort of understands the fickleness of both. But it's a little too clear for me. It doesn't ring true, I guess, or it doesn't feel grounded enough for me. But I can imagine that would really work for some people, right? If you're not, you don't have to have my taste, is what I'm saying. But yeah, like the thing is that, and this one, I was looking at reviews of this. Another thing, if you're interested, I didn't get to this part or anything like that, but apparently this is pretty low on Steam. There's like one scene between the two of them, and it's not super descriptive or super long or anything. So if you're like looking for like a bit of a less steamy historical that still technically has a lot of the trappings of like a more traditional one, then this one might work for you. It definitely doesn't, I doubt, have the dub con that happens in this. So this is like a matter of personal taste. I guess I am just realizing that I might be into the late 90s harder edges. Like, this feels a little soft-edged to me. I don't know if that's just the mood I'm in or what. We could probably analyze this in therapy. I don't know. But yeah, this one's not staying for moi. So yeah, Sophie Barnes is gonna go to a different home, and we're gonna read an Elizabeth Boyle, or try to read an Elizabeth Boyle. Good Lord, hopefully we love Elizabeth. Let me down, Lizzie. No, it's fine if she does. It's not her fault. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you all for listening to me ramble, and I will talk to you later. Bye. All right, last book of this round is Something About Emmeline by Elizabeth Boyle. This is the step back on the back. So, this is a pretty wacky one. So, Alexander Baron of Sedgwick, everyone calls him Sedgwick. He's kind of stiff and starchy and kind of boring. And he has an equally boring wife who's like sick, except he doesn't have a wife named Emmeline who is sick. He invented her because his sort of useless, drunken, but charming friend Jack was like, you should just invent a spouse and we'll just have it be this guy who went to Africa like 20-something years ago that no one's heard from since as like the daughter of this guy, and then you can just have a fake wife and she'll just like be in the country when you're in town, and then vice versa when she's not. And so Alex has invented a wife named Emmeline, which is the most interesting thing about him until Emmeline materializes, played by a beautiful blonde con artist who refuses to tell Alex her name. But she shows up and she says, yes, I'm Emmeline, and she immediately starts buying things and being very expensive, and he's like, who are you and how dare you? And she's like, oh, so you want to tell everyone that Emmeline doesn't exist. And he's like, So, yeah, so despite him being irritated, he's also very attracted to her because she's beautiful and smart and kind of Machiavellian, much to the chagrin of his, I believe, cousins, his cousin and the cousin's wife, who would really prefer if Alexander never had children because then they would be in line. So, like, to inherit, you know? So, yeah, it is about... It basically takes place over roughly 2 weeks where she is lying to everyone and is sort of falling in love with him and he's falling in love with her, and there are many hijinks. I finished this one, A, and B, I really liked it. It was very fun, so goofy. The nonsense just sort of builds and builds and builds, and then we get to like the ending crescendo, just like everything happens. There are so many characters that pop up here to contribute to the absolute nonsense that is the finale of this book. And I laughed a lot. It was very fun. Yeah, she is, I think if you like the Dressmaker series by Loretta Chase, which I really do, you will like Something About Emmeline, because Emmeline is an unabashed con artist and a card shark. Like, she is unrepentant about these things about herself at any point in time. She's not really ashamed of her past either. Like, Alex is just sort of like, oh, she's so unsuitable. And then he's like, oh, but she's so fun. And like, she's made my life so much more fun. And uh-oh, I think I'm in love. This has such screwball comedy energy of just like starchy man who like has his life completely toppled over by this woman who's larger than life. And he's like both confounded and obsessed. So yes, very, very fun. Something About Emmeline I liked a lot. So, we're going to keep Elizabeth Boyle. So, to sum up, I read, or tried to read, Outlaw Hearts by Roseanne Bittner, A Most Unlikely Duke by Sophie Barnes, and Something About Emmeline by Elizabeth Boyle. And of the three authors, I decided to keep Elizabeth Boyle. So, that is that. We'll be going on to The Seas next. Ooh, what fun. And we'll see how that goes. Because so far I have no predictions about any of this whatsoever. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Bye!